This is the MOJO, the Meaning of Life and Business podcast, where life and business intersect. Hosted by Jennifer Glass, CEO of Business Growth Strategies International and BGSI Coaching. We are dedicated to your success. Hello and welcome to another episode of MOJO, the Meaning of Life and Business. One of the things that very often happens when people are starting out in business, in life, they're going through challenges in their life, is they start looking for a mentor. They start looking for somebody that can be helping them really figure out some of those pieces that they may need to be looking at to be helping them skip the whole trial and error and put them in the right path. Other times it can be they're forced to really be looking at someone because they failed and they need to figure out exactly where they are. There's a lot of different reasons why somebody may look to a mentor, a guide, a coach to help them figure out exactly where they're going. I know in my own business coaching practice, I have a lot of clients that came to me for those exact reasons. But before we jump into our conversation today, I have a really great guest who is going to really help us understand a little bit more of his own experiences with mentoring, as well as the value that if you aren't being mentored right now or coached, you might start thinking about. But before I bring him on, let me tell you a little bit about him. Calvin Schwartz is a powerhouse with a passion for empowering others. He brings a unique blend of academic rigor and real-world experience to the table. After graduating from the Rutgers University Pharmacy School with a double science degree, Calvin spent 25 years honing leadership and sales expertise as a regional manager for Luxottica Group, the world's largest eyewear company. This journey wasn't just about transactions. It was about building connections and fostering growth. A lifelong learner with a creative spark, Calvin then embarked on a writing and media career. Inspired by the film Casablanca, Calvin Schwartz penned the novel Vichy Water, followed by a stint in journalism, contributing to publications like NJ Discover. Calvin's passion for storytelling further ignited during his tenure at NJ Discover, where he produced and co-hosted a local cable TV talk show. Calvin's second novel, There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit, has been met with rave reviews and a prestigious star from Kirkus Reviews. Calvin's commitment to making a difference extends beyond the media landscape, currently serving on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute at the Rutgers RWJ Medical School and the One Health New Jersey Steering Committee. Calvin champions collaboration for positive change. His dedication extends to future generations, as evidenced by teaching a career explorations class at Rutgers and actively mentoring students. Cal, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm listening to your thing there, and I'm saying to myself, "Who is that guy?" It's kind of an out of body. It's an out of body experience. You're listening. It's like an epitaph. But you nailed it. And I'm really excited about doing this with you, Jennifer, and sharing whatever I can share, because it has been a commitment for a long, long time. So thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you.
Thank you.
So, Cal, let me ask you, first of all, you've had so many different walks in your lifetime. You've been in the eyewear area. You've been teaching. You've been in journalism. You've been writing your books. There's a lot of different things that you've been doing. If you look at the common thread that weaves all of it together, is there anything that you would say you can look in the tapestry and say that's the common thread there?
That's a great question, and it could be two-pronged. There's a creative element inside me that's been wanting to come out for a long, long, long time. And not getting heavily psychological about it, but it took me many years to realize there was just something creative that I wanted to give back. I felt I had great experiences and I wanted to get back in the learning and the people aspect of who I am and what I am, because I love people. And so that was an element of wanting to give back, and also wanting to learn. There was this constant thing about learning, and part of that, I guess, was my upbringing. When I was like 8, 9 years old, my mother gave me uh, uh, um, a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and insisted I read that. So that whole,
Wow.
yeah, like 9 years old, I'm reading I never forget this. 9, 10, even maybe 10 years old. I'm reading a biography about Jim Thorpe, and my mother takes it away and says, "You got to read Dale Carnegie." And a funny thing, so there was always it was put in by my parents, my mother particularly. So it's all these things that are inside the creativity, the wanting to learn, uh, uh, um, maybe wanting to be heard. I had a voice and I wanted to be heard. So it was an amalgam. That's a great word. It was an amalgam of a lot of things that were inside of me. And then, interestingly, we never discussed this in our private chats, but I'd done some spiritual stuff. With a spiritual healer and a clairvoyant a couple of weeks ago. And again, it was all networking, and she determined that I was 1,200 years old, my soul, um, and spiritually, and then this PhD who I was talking to you about attributed that. It's really interesting stuff. The 1,200 years old means I've had a lot of careers. So all the different things that I've done is because I've done these things. If this makes any sense, and there's actually a book that she sent me a link last night, as a matter of fact, that it's a book written, if you do, I mean, I've had 6 careers in the last 12 years, distinct, different, unique careers. And I don't plan this stuff. It kind of lands in your lap. So maybe it's a spiritual element, and it's the stuff inside, Jennifer, and it's my upbringing, all contributing to why I guess I do what I do. And there's no forethought, jumping from one career to another. You We do that. When I taught at Rutgers, I taught kids that they're going to have 17 jobs and 5 careers before they hang it all up. That's the average. So I lived that average the last 5, 6 years, 10 years, whatever. Anyway, I don't know if that answers it clearly, but it was a great question.
Lifelong learning is definitely one of those important pieces, because we see, first of all, one of the things that I say, and I've heard it said so many times, if you didn't learn something new today, it was a waste of a day. And so it really is, what is that new thing that I can possibly learn? What is that new idea? What is that new thought that can trigger some sort of creative outlet, some sort of inspirational outlet, something that's going to allow me to develop a particular part of myself, my business, my life, my family, that can really be making that difference. So seeing how that learning nugget, whatever that is every single day, really adds up and we get to a certain point. But let me kind of weave back in, if we will, for the tapestry thought, and go into mentorship. And how has a mentor been applicable in your life and your career as far as going through these different careers?
By the way, you said something really profound just now, and I smiled. You talked about a day. If you didn't learn something that day, it wasn't a good day. And I remember vividly, because I've seen it dozens of times, the great late Jim Valvano, this great basketball coach, this mentor, this inspiration, this great human being, gave this amazing speech near the end of his life. He was given an award at ESPN, and you can, everybody out there can just, Jim Valvano, ESPN speech. What a marvelous speech. He was near the end of his life and he knew it. And part of the speech was, it isn't a full day, and I've seen it so many times that I know it, and it ties right into what you said, Jennifer. It isn't a good day. It's not a complete good day unless you laugh, you cry, and you think. Laugh, cry, and think. And think is part of that is learning. So anyway, going back to what the question you asked, the whole notion of mentoring. As a pharmacist, I had an intern for a year, so I had a mentor, and part of that was part of my training. So I had a mentor, and I noticed for that entire year that I had a mentor, a preceptor, whatever you want to call it, completely. It was completely nebulous. Nothing happened, and meaning every question I asked, he was too busy to answer a question. So it was a wasted year. And it always sat in the back of my mind about what I would have liked from that relationship. So I never got it. So I guess deep-seated, when I was in a position to give back. So when I started the journalism, I wrote a novel. And to me, the novel writing, my first novel, Fishy Water, that thrust me into a whole new world. And I said, well, my gosh, if I can write a novel, I could become a journalist. And that mechanism of that changing my whole life around, because I'd never written anything in my life before. So now I wrote a novel, and now I became a journalist, and actually I was doing 2 or 3 things here, as a couple of magazines here in Jersey, then NJ Discover. But it put me into a position that I've accomplished something. So then there was this deep-seated thing in me. There was a lot of deep-seated things in me. The lack of mentoring back then. So if I could give back to young people about part of my journey, that would be it would be a wonderful thing. And that was the beginning. And what really thrust me into the world of mentoring was, I don't know, maybe it was 12, 13, 14 years ago. A friend of mine asked me to go to a career night at Rutgers, an alumni night, career night at Rutgers University. And it was speed networking. And I had 2 students sitting down. I mentioned this to you before we went on air. 2 students sitting down next to me for 2 minutes. And I'm supposed to tell my life story in 2 minutes and answer questions in 2 minutes. And then the bell rings and 2 more students come. And that left me completely empty, that it didn't accomplish. So the following year, I kind of looked for ways to express myself, ways to give back, because I thought giving back to young people is a wonderful thing. Not enough people do it. And so I got involved in a mentoring program in communication and media. I'm a novelist. I started a TV show, a cable TV talk show, which, even though it was local, we were bringing in some national type guests. And don't ask me how I did it. I had Gilbert Gottfried on my show. The late Gilbert Gottfried was on my show. He's a major national comedian, a spokesperson for insurance, Aflac. So I was able to pull that off. Nobody taught me. It's all self-taught, because those were the values that I grew up with way back when Eisenhower and Kennedy were president. And Nixon too. The do-it-yourself, those kind of values. So it began. My mentoring began when I was asked to be a panelist at a Rutgers alumni student panel and I'm a panelist with 5 people. One of them was Heather O'Rourke from ABC. She does the traffic stuff in the morning. So I mean, I kind of pinch myself. Here I am sitting with these amazing, accomplished people, and I'm doing a little journalism, doing a little stuff, but they thought of me. So that was the thrust, that I could do this. So the following year, I signed on to be a mentor with the road to communication and media through Rutgers University. And I had a student to mentor, and once a month I was on campus, and we sat and talked for 2 hours and discussed things, and there was forums, and it was a great it was great and fulfilling, and it was meaningful because they were journalism. These were journalism and creative writing students, so I was living it and experiencing it. So and again, it's a learning process for me as it is for them, because the second year Rutgers liked what I was doing, so they gave me 2 students to handle, which was work. I mean, this is work, and I took it really seriously. And then there's an underground that when students find out there's somebody, and age is not a factor. There's somebody there who loves doing this kind of stuff, and I was successful in what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't on ABC or CBS. So at my peak before the pandemic, I was mentoring 2 students through Rutgers and 12 additional students. So I was mentoring 14 students and back and forth. And I loved every second of it and gave back. And I had my own table at Henry's Diner on campus and stayed there for 3 hours, mentoring students 3 times a week. And it was completely, totally fulfilling. And because of that commitment, that actually led to Rutgers coming to me and said, "Would you like to teach?" Which was one of the highlights of my life. I have no teaching experience, except I'm married to an elementary school teacher for 46 years. So I guess that counts for something. And so to me, it was one of the greatest accomplishments of my life to teach at a major, amazing university with no teaching background. And I taught career explorations and networking. But anyway, that's just today I wrote up my last report. I mentored this amazing student. And I get a kick out of this too, Jennifer. The kick I get out is when early on in my mentoring, a few years ago, I had an epiphany. And actually, I said to one of the students I was mentoring, I said, "Oh my God," we were Zooming. I said, "Oh my God." And the student said, "You're right." I said, "Yeah, but I just realized something. I'm a half century older than you." It was very funny. And the student got it. But that half century didn't interfere with anything. There were no roadblocks. The communication lines were smooth and open, and we clicked on so many different levels. And I don't know to attribute it to. It was just this great ease and the bonding. Again, it's self-fulfilling, because the more you do it, the better you get. So that was a long-winded answer. I don't know if I answered it entirely, but and I was saying, I just had a student, and she was great. She's a sophomore. She can't vote, can't drink. She can vote. She just turned 20. Yet we had such a great year together, mostly on Zoom, but there were live stuff. I went to campus. We went to a basketball game. And she's a junior this year. She's a creative writer, and creative writing student, and a journalist. So all the things that she loves, I love, and I do. So it was just one of the most fulfilling years. And we would Zoom, and instead of a half hour, 40 minutes for an hour and a half, and we'd have to stop ourselves because there's great chemistry. But the fact that I could I could make a difference. I could guide, I could lead by example, because the stuff she's interested in, I'm living. And that's the essence, part of my mentoring is the stuff that these students really are interested in, what they're pursuing is the stuff that I'm living. So I'm living this stuff and I'm experiencing stuff and I'm learning this stuff and I'm pushing myself. So it is truly, it'll never go out, it'll never become outdated. It's just a wonderful undertaking, mentoring.
Absolutely. I personally am a volunteer mentor for 2 different nonprofit groups. And at any given time, I have 6 mentees through these nonprofits that I'm mentoring, in addition to my own clients that, of course, are paying me to coach and guide them. And it was just funny with Gilbert Gottfried, you mentioned the Aflac bid, and I'm just going to throw this out there for a second because it was really funny. As a really young child, my daughter, we asked her one time at Disney, we were waiting for the ferry to take us to another one of the parks. And my daughter, I think, was like 3, 4, something along those lines. And we said, "What is a dachshund?" And she said, "Aflac."
Wow.
Talk about marketing dollars at work. Everyone around was cracking up.
Wow.
My daughter had no idea why everyone was laughing.
Wow.
Right? I mean, she really thought a duck says Aflac just because she saw that commercial a couple of times, and well, that's what it says.
Wow.
Then again, she saw actual ducks saying quack, quack, and it was like, why aren't they saying Aflac? But a whole other story. But when it comes down to mentoring, though, yes, it's really important. We find the people that connect us, that can really help us learn something new, help us figure out a new idea, whatever it may be, and go from there. And like you said, it really is fulfilling when you see the result of what happened. But let me ask, though, you mentioned, like you said, oh my God, you were half a century older than that student. Has the thought ever surfaced, and putting aside age, but you're too old to understand what's going on now, or you don't understand for whatever other reason, or where there's the natural butting of heads in terms of, well, I know this is working, and they say, well, no, it's not. Have you experienced that? And if you have, how have you overcome those kinds of hesitancy to take the advice that's being offered?
Another really interesting question. Really interesting. I got my thinking cap on, my rector's thinking cap on. In my experience, these 7, 8, 9 years, the teaching and the mentoring currently, that necessarily hasn't come up per se. And when it has, and listen, it's not a perfect world, of course, these kind of issues, the walls of buyer's resistance, an old sales term, come up. But maybe it's the kind of mentoring I do, because I avoid and I accept. I avoid and I accept. I avoid to the best of my ability to have areas where there would be roadblocks, things that might hinder the smooth sailing, so to speak. So I avoid and I accept. I accept that it's not a perfect world and there will be differences of opinions and things. But I always like, in my mentoring, in my teaching, I always like to bring up a live to to facilitate the smoothness, to facilitate the bonding. I bring up things, and I try to research. Another key to avoiding roadblocks, and this I'm sure applies to you. But listen, I jump around a lot. I'm forgive me. It's just who I am. But listen, I work for the richest Italian in the world for 25 years, billionaires, 30 billion, and the values that they imparted to me. And this is business, not what I do now. But the values they imparted to me, and I interacted with the son, another billionaire, a billionaire, and interacting, weekly, 25 years kind of thing. So there's so much stuff up here. But one of the key things that was taught to me, and it pertains now to a student, if I'm mentoring, one of the key things they taught me is before the initial meeting, to research as best I can, if you can find it. And today you can find a lot of stuff if it's not on LinkedIn or Facebook, or even Google. So I would try to research and study about a student, learn about them, and buy whatever. So that's a small part. I would understand backgrounds and so forth. So this would help me formulate, how I take an approach to a student. It kind of makes things smoother. But the other way in my mentoring that I deal with, roadblocks is you kind of avoid that. I kind of shoot for positivity in everything I can, and where there could be roadblocks, I like to show them by example. And it's funny, one of the roadblocks I've had with a lot of the students I mentored was the world of LinkedIn. And I'm a great networker, and I was trying to impress upon them. And it's interesting, Jennifer, because this really, now that I'm thinking about this, if there had been one roadblock that almost every student shared, was the value of networking, how important it is, and they didn't grasp that. They don't grasp that necessarily. Maybe you have to be 50 years older than somebody to understand how important networking is. So it's funny, that has been kind of a roadblock, and trying to impress upon students. It's never too early to begin that journey to building up LinkedIn, for example. Building it up. I mean, there's no reason on earth why I have 15,000 connections on LinkedIn, because I ain't looking for work. I'm a card-carrying member of AARP, but I show them, and then I give them examples. I have dramatic, powerful examples of the power of networking, and I show them. It's really unusual, strange, powerful examples. So to deal with a roadblock, and that would be one of them, I'm then prepared to show them examples of just how powerful it is. And so one of my favorite success stories is I was mentoring a Rutgers University basketball star. He was a basketball star, played for a year. Now he's playing pro ball in France. And he and I took a picture together at a meeting, at a core club, Rutgers basketball meeting. We took a picture together, and he's a superstar, and I posted it on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere. And then, I got 5,000 views. It was like, wow, and 100 of these, and then I saw him a few days later, and he was warming up. They were playing a game, and his name is Aquazi, and I said to him, by the way, that picture we took got 5,000 views on LinkedIn. And he said, "Can you teach me LinkedIn?" And I said, "Let's do it." And so I mentored this basketball star on how to use LinkedIn. And the roadblock because he's a basketball star and he's not necessarily motivated to do LinkedIn, but he sat with me for hours and hours, and whatever I gave him and whatever suggestions I made, he had a picture. He's a basketball star. He had a picture. He's wearing a tie, in his LinkedIn thumbnail thing. And I said, lose that tie. You got pictures of you wearing a basketball jersey. People love that. So that night, he changed it. So the point being, dealing with roadblocks, if you're prepared, you understand them, backgrounds, and then if you have examples of success, that can help you. So that's another long-winded answer.
Yeah. And LinkedIn is definitely a really important platform. I know that I do a lot on the platform. I have almost 11,000 first-degree connections myself. But I am looking for business on the platform. I'm not looking for a new job, but I am looking for clients. I'm looking for relationships. I'm looking for value. And that's always important in that regard. But let me ask, as far as networking goes, one of the things that I talk about a lot is in networking is the idea that you don't want to be going and saying, here's my card, let's do lunch. That's the typical networking. It's really all about creating the relationship, understanding the long-term value of the person that you're speaking with, not just the idea, I'm going to sell you and this is purely transactional and that's all that I care about. In your experience with networking, and when you are trying to impress upon these younger kids the importance of networking, how does all of that differ? Because again, one of the things that I see, especially from younger networkers, is they only want to go for the sale. They don't understand the relationship yet. You see more older men, and I'm calling out the guys for a moment here, it's also still to a good extent transactional, whereas women are relationship driven. That's just the difference in how we operate. So there really is a difference in the sexes there. But from your experience, though, impressing upon these kids the importance of really paying attention to the relationship over the transaction, how has that been met, if that's something that has come up?
That's hard. It's hard because they're a kid, and you can't expect. And I understand that. It is what it is. I say that all the time. They're kids. I mean, a lot of these kids aren't even 21 yet. And I can't, and that sometimes is it's a hard concept for me to, it's a hard concept for me to climb over. These are kids, they're right out of high school. They're kids and they cannot, and I remember myself, as best I can, half century ago, when, I was a kid like that. It's hard. It's hard to tell them. It's hard to explain. It's hard to impress. So I try to work within. I try to work on their level. I try to work on their level. I mean, I have a favorite story that I tell and I show them, and one on one. I show them how I met. It's a long story. How I met someone by giving out my business card on a train platform. 8, 9 years ago, as an experiment, I was going to a basketball game with my wife. We'd taken a train to Madison Square Garden. So there's 30 people on a train platform for no particular reason. I said, I'm going to give each one of these people my business card. It's a great story, actually. It's an interesting story. So my wife thought she walked away from me. She was embarrassed. She thought I was out of my mind. And to strangers, I say, here's my business card. I'm a writer or journalist. And I expected nothing from it. It was an exercise. And this is what I try to tell kids. It was an exercise in thinking outside the box. That old box thing. Trying to think outside the box just to see if I had the energy and the self-confidence. because there's self-confidence built in there. Hey, I'm a journalist. Here's my card. Have a nice day. And anyway, I did that. And then 4 or 5 hours later, coming home. And again, it's a networking exercise. Coming home on the train, 4 hours later, it was like maybe 10 o'clock at night, 10, 15 people in the train car. And I said to my wife, watch this. And she said, oh no, what are you going to do? And I got up. The people who weren't sleeping, I said, you know, I'm a writer, a journalist. Here's my card. And nothing, of course, nothing ever came from that. And nothing ever came from that. But 5 years later, when I was building my LinkedIn network, and I did it organically, and that's how I got to 15,000. I had connected with a student at Rutgers University, and the student said to me, "You don't remember, but 5 years ago, you gave me your business card at the train station." Wow. And she wrote me a lovely note. Wow. So this is a perfect example of the power of networking, that you never know. And I connected, and I saved the note she wrote me, the message she wrote me. And when I encounter students who are not necessarily processing the importance of networking, it's 24/7. I send them the note and explain this story. It does work. It's not the real world, but it is the real world because it happened. So, but it's hard. It's a hard undertaking because I'm coming from my world and try to get to their world, and I accept, if there are walls of resistance that goes up, I accept it, and we move on to other aspects. But I'm a living example. I'm walking around with 15,000. It's nice. It means something, and I use this stuff every day as I post. But I show this, to students, and even non-students. Sometimes I might mentor contemporaries of mine. Friends and contemporaries. How do you do this, and this? But I don't belabor, and I'm very accepting. It is what it is, and I know you can't change red to blue and blue to red, and so that it's good for my soul and my head. Hope I answered that too.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Cal, let me ask you, as we look at wrapping up our conversation, if you were going to be giving someone who is, let's start on the younger side first, or the person who's seeking out a mentor, what would be the biggest reason that they should be getting that mentor for what they're doing?
Well, listen, the biggest reason is mentoring. Mentoring is like an overpass. I'm making this up as I go along. I'm just thinking about the question you asked. Mentoring is like an overpass. You got an overpass, and underneath there's all kinds of congestion and traffic lights, and the overpass is built to overcome and save so much time. Mentoring, if somebody has lived it, somebody who's been in the trenches has lived it, and it is that overpass that facilitates and makes life easier because somebody's been in the trenches. I find I'm in a position now. I have my podcast, but I interview a lot of authors, and I'm an indie author, and I'm going through that whole thing, and I'm learning, and I'm really in a learning mode. So I want to put myself in a position someday, if I can become successful, really successful, in getting my book, which I could show, there's a tortoise in my hair, the journey to spirit, and it's got a Kirkus star. So, but and I want, I can't explain it. I would love to mentor authors at any stage, because I, the query letters, and I've done the publishing, and I've done the whole. So mentoring is an overpass to help people in whatever age. Hey, I was in college. I did the college thing. I studied for finals. I did all of that. I had my midlife. Now I'm doing this kind of stuff. So it just makes life easier if people can realize somebody's did it, somebody's doing it. I'm doing it. I'm living it on so many different levels. And that's what I try to impress. I've done it. And I would never, I'd never step out. I'd never step out of my comfort level. My comfort level is what I do, as a journalist, a writer, and climate change. I mean, these are the things that I'm comfortable with. So it makes me more effective as a mentor. If I've lived it and I've done it, then maybe I can help you. And I would never volunteer to mentor about something that I was not sure about, because it's pointless. So if I've been in the trenches, then I'm your overpass. I like that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. And so looking on the flip side, if you have experience in a particular area, why would someone want to possibly be a mentor?
Because we need it. Why? It's a wonderful feeling of accomplishment. It's a wonderful thing to see for me, and I'm sure, listen, there's a lot of mentors out there. It's a wonderful feeling for me to see that I've made a difference. And there's a connection. I mean, the student that I mentored, we actually went to a basketball game together. There's that half century. And so for me, that's just a great, here I am. I'm as old as a grandfather, and we're at a basketball game together. And that's a great, exhilarating feeling of accomplishment, that here's solid senior citizen interacting and working with Gen Z. This is wonderful. So the feeling you get of accomplishment, of making a difference, is you can't bottle that. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. You want more. You want more. It's like chocolate cake. Everything's, you love chocolate. It's chocolate cake with tons of icing. You want more of that, because it's a wonderful feeling to give back. And it's also a wonderful feeling because in mentoring, I was mentoring, there was such a diversity of young students I mentored over the years, just about it from everywhere and anywhere. And that too is a great feeling, embodying the elements of DEI. For me, a wonderful feeling, because it works, dealing with diversity. So again, and these are elements that energize, that it gives me endorphins to do that kind of stuff, and that I can do that. I think it's a gift. You take it to a higher spiritual plane, spiritual level. It's a gift, I think, to be able, at my advanced age, to be able to do this stuff and interact. And there's a release of endorphins when I do this stuff. It's great.
Absolutely. And thank you. And it is a great feeling when you can see the difference that someone makes, or that the help that you give someone, that it has done for them. I know for me, I have said so many times, and those of you that know Simon Sinek, he has a book, Start with the Why. And it really is, when you look at what it is that you're doing, sometimes it is start with the why. Why is it that you're doing what it is that you're doing? And for me, I look at it, if I can help somebody in their business, I can help someone increase their revenue. That means that they're going to be bringing in more people to work there because they need help doing whatever it is that they're doing in this business. Whether it's a retail shop and they have more people coming in, so they need more clerks, they need more stock boys, whatever it may be. Then you have other people that from there, they now have more disposable income because there's more revenue coming in. That means that all the local organizations that depend on Main Street businesses, they now have the ability to get donations that they rely on. And it's the extended community. It is the causes that you're passionate about, whatever it is. And I've been saying it for years, and I'll say it again right now. I want to put St. Jude out of business. Not that, oh my God, what is she saying? That she wants to shut the hospital? It's not that I want to shut the hospital. Unfortunately, if they manage to cure cancer, there'll unfortunately be way too many other things they can turn into. But the idea is, though, is that I've been saying for so long, I want to end childhood cancer. No kid should ever die from cancer. Just like I feel no kid should ever go hungry. But we've got all of these problems. There's no reason, though, that this is happening. And the more that we can show to the world that we can do all of these things, the more that these values start coming in. I've been accused of being utopian because I see the value that we can all do better. Truth is that there's no dystopia. When they accuse me of being utopian, there had to be a dystopia somewhere in their mind, but I don't see it. Most people don't see the downside when it comes to everyone really having more opportunity. But that's a whole other story. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I love seeing the after effect of how all of this makes that difference. But Cal, one other question I wanted to ask before we really wrap up is, how do you define success?
Well, there's a personal success and there's a success how others view you, I guess. Uh, um, Success to me is absolutely non-monetary. There's no money involved. Success is what I take out of it, what I've learned from it, and how it makes me feel. In my last 13 years as a journalist and a writer, there was no success. There was never, ever that word money involved in everything I'm doing. I'm doing it from my own sense of what's right, uh, what can help others, uh, um, and you know, selling a book on Amazon before, hey, someone bought my book, hey, that's great. I mean, that's success. So success is, there are different degrees. It's what you put in and you're seeing things you're getting out. But for me, um, and I write about it in my novel, my character was never motivated by money. So success has nothing whatsoever to do with money. It's as a writer, I've achieved great success because I got a Kirkus star, and I'm so grateful for that. And whether it leads to selling books or not, it doesn't make a difference. I got a Kirkus star. So success is feeling good about yourself, achieving, never the notion of money, because I I realized a long time ago I'm not supposed to have money, and so and it's fine. Uh, I can deal with it. So success is how are you feeling about yourself and the difference you make in your world. If you've made a difference, and that's success.
Yeah. And that's definitely a great way to look at it. So As we wrap up our conversation, Cal, how can people find you if they want to connect with you?
They can find me on Facebook. I'm Cal Schwartz on Facebook. LinkedIn, I'm Calvin Schwartz. I have a website, calvinschwartz.com. Those are my 3 places where I hang out. I also have conversations with Calvin, We the Species, on YouTube, where I talk to people all over the world. We're going to talk about that, you and I. So it's just really easy. It's Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and that's how people can find me.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
That I've spoken about several times before. If you've been following me long enough, you know that I recommend having that informal, at least, advisory board of people that you have around you at all times. The more that you really see, this is exactly who I need to be around, the more likely it is that you are then going to be in a much better position. And having that mentor in your corner is a great way to certainly get there and start moving in the right direction. Again, Cal, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
On that note, this has been another episode of MOJO, the Meaning on Life and Business. And until next time, here's to your success. This has been another episode of MOJO, the Meaning of Life and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, please consider leaving us a review, liking us, or reaching out to us. You can contact us at bgsicoaching.com and let us know what you think. Thanks so much again for listening.